It was a promotion for Josh that found himself signing a probationary contract. For the company, it was a way to get rid of him. They fired him. He had 15 grand in the bank, nothing going on, and he decided to set out to travel the world to find himself, to discover what life is all about. His journey begins in Vietnam, where he suddenly finds himself swinging a leg over a motorcycle, which he'd never done before. And although terrifying and potentially extremely dangerous, he falls in love with the bike through this experience. And by the time he comes back, he finds a way to meld motorcycles, travel, exploration, and work. I'm Jim Martin. This is Adventure Rider Radio. Stay with us. We got a good one for you.
Sam Manicus, Simon, Simon Baby, Helge Pedersen, Macaulay Bowman, Chris Birch,
Elizabeth Martin,
Jocelyn Snow,
Quentin Smote, and you're listening to Adventure Rider Radio.
It's wind pressure that powers the Moto Breeze chain oiler. No electrical or vacuum connections. It delivers the oil to a felt pad on your swing arm. No nozzles near your sprockets. 1 ounce of oil gets 1,000 miles or 1,600 kilometers. Get more miles from your chain and sprockets. MotoBreeze.com. And Green Chili Adventure Gear offers American-made, heavy-duty luggage systems for all types of motorcycles. You can turn any dry bag into luggage using their strapping system. And, of course, Green Chili Adventure Gear is tested in extreme weather and terrain to withstand the abuse that adventure riding gives it. Tough, reliable gear. GreenChiliADV.com. Best Rest Products is the maker of the Cycle Pump, the best tire inflator for motorcyclists. You can inflate a flat tire in less than 3 minutes. Is founded, assembled, and warranted for life in the USA. They're also the inventor and retailer of the combination tire iron / wrench, the Hex Wrench. CyclePump.com.
Sure. Josh Kepkay. I'm from North Vancouver, and I work as a residential real estate agent.
Josh, welcome to Adventure Rider Radio.
Thank you, Jim.
Are you from Vancouver?
Yeah, I grew up here in North Vancouver. Yeah, it's always been my home. Beautiful place.
What was it like growing up in North Vancouver?
Oh, it's amazing. I always tell people I got dragged to the Sunshine Coast to live out my teenage years because I never wanted to leave here. Sunshine Coast is beautiful to retire to, but North Vancouver, you have the mountains right at your doorstep. You've got the ocean. Anything you could want, really, we've got right here.
What's the Sunshine Coast?
The Sunshine Coast is a little peninsula you take a 45-minute ferry to, and it's a lot quieter. Not so much to do. Mountain biking, and there is motorcycle riding to do, but I didn't discover that as a kid. So just not much going on for the youth.
And why do they call it Sunshine Coast?
Supposedly it's sunny. I mean, it's kind of like North Vancouver. It's summertime is wonderful, but we're on the West Coast. It rains a lot.
All right.
We're in the rainforest.
In 2014, which is where I want to start with your story, you found yourself at what you described as a crossroads. Can you talk about that point in your life? What were you doing and how do we lead up to what happened?
Well, I was working for this beer company for about a year, and it was run by this very eccentric Japanese lady who was quite older, and it was running it as sort of a hobby, passion project. I don't know what you call it. And I don't know how, but I found myself on the wrong side of her, and they gave me a promotion and into the sales role. And that involved me signing a probationary period. And even though I was the top guy for that period, they still decided to let me go with no real reason for it. So I found myself going, well, I don't know what I want to do next here. So what should I be doing? And I happen to have some money in the bank account, which was a first for, how old was I? 26. And I decided it was a great time to take a trip around the world and find out who I really was. And so I think I got let go in maybe like first week of December, second week of December. And by January 6th, I was on a plane.
So hang on. So you said you were got on the wrong side of her, but then she gives you a promotion. Is this like a way to get you out the door?
It was to get me to sign that probationary period thing where they can fire you for really any reason.
Right, without warning or anything. So what you were an
Yeah.
employee that she had some responsibility to, she gives you a promotion and then uses that to give you the boot. That's really lousy.
Yeah, because I was in marketing and I always wanted to be in sales, and so that was my ticket into sales. And a little bit of a bait and switch there, but in the grand scheme of things, I'm so much better off. So I think it was a blessing in hindsight.
You could have easily moaned and groaned about that, and maybe just by having that attitude, really taking it hard and looking at it negatively, you could have ended up somewhere completely different than where you ended up now.
Absolutely. And it was just helpful to have, I think I had like $14,000 in the bank for the first time in my life. So there was, some cushion there on and what I could do.
Why'd you have so much money in the bank?
Oh, I was working for the government before that, which was awful. And they make you pay into the pension program. And then when you leave they pay that back to you. So that had just come through.
Oh, well, that's kind of nice, isn't it? So you just happen to get an influx of cash and then you get fired. So you're in a pretty sweet position as far as, you could have just hung around and put your feet up and not done anything. What made you think about travel?
I had never traveled anywhere, really. We live in such a beautiful place that there's not a lot of reason to go a lot of other places was my outlook at the time. Mountains, water, all the adventure you could want here. And it just, the time seemed right to do that and go and explore, 26, go see if you can hack it on your own, really, because I went traveling by myself, apart from meeting up with a friend of mine at the beginning of this journey. And so, yeah, I think the challenge of and seeing what you're made of, really.
So you decide that you want to go traveling. What gets you to where you went and what you were doing?
Well, I have a very close friend from university, and he's a very adventurous person. So, I stay in touch with him. He lives in Calgary, Alberta, which is in Canada. And I just told him what was going on, and I was thinking about making this world trip. And he said, "Well, I'm going to Vietnam in January, and I'm going to do this motorcycle trip and write an article for a magazine. And so why don't you meet me there and start your trip there, and we'll hang out for the 10 days, and then I'll go do my thing, and you continue on." And I said, "Sure, sounds great." He's a great planner. I'm more of a wing it type of person.
And at this point, is it a backpacking trip?
Yeah, it's shoestring backpacking trip. I think I spent 4 months in Southeast Asia and another 4 in Western Europe.
Okay, so you left home with your backpack, and that was your intention, grabbing buses and different bits of transportation to go and stay in certain places.
That's it. And thankfully, I was able to snag a pretty sweet backpack for the trip from that beer company just before I left, went out the door. So it was one of our promo items at the time.
Nice. So you used that. Boy, you were going on the cheap. You didn't go and spend a lot of money on luggage.
No, definitely not.
So you get there to, where did you go?
I landed in Hanoi, Vietnam.
Wow. What was that like when you arrived?
Wow. Talk about night and day culture shock here. You get off the plane. First thing that happens to you is you get scammed by the taxi driver. But it was only $15. It's not too bad. And just the scooters and buzzing around everywhere was incredible. You see all the power lines. They look like a bird's nest because they just strap a new one on there when one goes out. And it was a lot to take in, and really a little nerve-wracking because I didn't know anybody. I just checked into some hostel, and a couple of days later, my friend arrived. So it was a lot.
The first few hours, first day, sort of, what did that feel like?
That's a good question. I was definitely nervous, but I think I'm someone who can perform under pressure. So you just kind of see who's around, you say hello, and before you know it, you're walking around with somebody who's doing the same thing as you, and going to find a beer and something to eat, and then you just get into what I found to be, really easy for this traveling stuff is, everybody's asking the same handful of questions everywhere you go. Where are you from? Where are you going? How long are you going? Where you been? And so it was good. It was a good feeling to be on that adventure.
So really what you did is you connected with somebody who was more like yourself rather than sort of getting into the culture immediately. I mean, that would be, because that's, that's what I think most of us want to do when we go somewhere we're uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot, again, I was 26. A lot of people, not a lot of people, but some people go to Southeast Asia and they want to see the museums and the culture. And my intention was really just to go and party with the Europeans and maybe find some people to stay with when I went to connect with, and then later stay with when I went to Europe. So
right, you're not trying to whitewash this into something else. This is just what it was. It was a party trip.
It was. I look back on it very fondly.
Mm. And then you got on a motorcycle. Talk about that.
Oh, wow. This was nerve-wracking. I've only sat on the back of my buddy's dad's motorbike as a kid once, which was terrifying. But my friend arrived a day or two later, and so we make our way. We do a few tourist things, and then the next day we make our way to this bike shop that he's gonna rent these bikes from. And as we got there, I had to lean over and whisper to him, like, can you tell me how to start this thing? Because I don't know what I'm doing, and you're telling this guy that I've got experience motors, like I'm experienced at this.
So hang on, he's renting the bike for you? Like, what's the deal? Why are you going on bikes?
Well, that was he was doing this trip to write an article. I think he had gotten some money from a magazine to just write an article, and he was just sort of factoring that in to pay for some of his adventure, and it was something he wanted to do.
Sure.
So that was already his plan, and I was just going along for the ride. And so I leaned over to ask him, how do you start it? Because he's lying to the rental shop guy do you want to rent a bike for 5 days to a guy that's never thrown a leg over? Yeah, so he tells me, and he's telling them they don't check your driver's licenses. Like I don't know if they could read them. And so we do that, and he's telling this guy as I'm trying to figure this thing out that I usually ride Harleys, and so we throw this thing into the middle of there's like a median, the sort of island between two lanes of traffic. And so he's teaching me how to ride this thing in the median of the streets of Hanoi, which is an incredibly busy traffic town. If anyone's seen the Top Gear episode where they do that in Vietnam, it's overwhelming, and it's very intimidating. But I mean, when you get on, once you figure out the clutch and the throttle and the gears, I'm a fast learner, I guess.
You say intimidating. Talk a little bit more about intimidating, what those first few minutes felt like, and were you ready to give up?
No, I wasn't ready to give up. I was, maybe youthful and overconfident, and you feel invincible at that age. So I was ready for it. And, the main rules he told me to remember were just worry about who's in front of you. The people behind you are gonna, be fine, and they're watching all of that. So just that, and if something goes wrong, pull the clutch. That was the reminder. Just pull the clutch.
You spent a few minutes learning how to ride in the Meridian, and then what happens?
Then we set off, and when we set off from the Hanoi on these bikes, and you're making your way out of town, it's all pretty mellow. But our second day into this, that's when you really start getting into the mountains. Actually, no, it was both days. The first day, we set off into the first mountain, and it's 2-lane traffic. There's massive buses, massive trucks with sugarcane on the back of them. And these guys drive pretty crazy. And I definitely almost got taken out by a bus and one of these trucks. And this is all on my first day riding this little 150, and that's pretty overwhelming, and
yeah,
I don't know, I have a hard time articulating it, but That's part of the thrill. I think that's part of the thrill. You say on some of the podcasts that you do, if it wasn't dangerous, we probably wouldn't want to do it as much.
Talk more about the ride there.
Well, it was all back roads on the way up. So you're riding along the coast up through the mountains and super windy, twisty roads. Heavily trafficked for a lot of them, but not all of them. And so nice to drive through these little villages where all the school kids are waving and yelling hello at you. It's beautiful. It's all just, it's everything you look for when you're going on a trip to a developing country. Not a lot of big, tall, like very agricultural dirt roads, busy roads, a lot of big buses and crazy truck drivers and things like that. Grasslands, you got some mountains off there. You got beautiful water views. I'd have a hard time telling you exactly where we were because I was just following, but yeah, it's something else. Just one of the most beautiful rides I've done for sure. Yeah, it's just coming out of Vancouver, a place where, we're known to be a little cold sometimes towards other people. A lot of people are lonely in our city. Just to see and be immersed in something, where they don't have a lot, but you can see the smiles on their faces and yeah, I think that's why, when I go away now on vacations, I don't want to go to a city. I don't really want to go to New York. This is what my wife and I have to sometimes compromise on is she likes cities and I want to go to a developing country and see the landscape. And there's just nothing better than that to see that you don't need a lot, right? And I think that's common for a lot of the people will say when they tell you their stories like this is sometimes less is more.
And at this point, the bike means what to you?
Oh, I don't know what it meant to me, but it was quite a feeling to ride it and just be part of this, melee of chaos on the roads. And you got the people with animals strapped to the back of them, or 5 people. I imagine they take their babies home from the hospital on these scooters. And it was something else. I loved it. And you know what? I hate to admit it, but I think that driving style, it just sticks with me. I like driving a little crazy like that, even here at home.
So that's where you cut your teeth and it's never left.
I guess so, yeah.
So are you just riding for a few days on that?
That was what was kicked off. He had this set up to be 5 days. So we made our way and we stayed in some little town called Mai Chau overnight and explored a bit around there, took some pictures. And then we continued from there the next day towards Sapa.
And what are you guys riding?
I know we were riding XRs, so Honda XRs. I can't remember if they were 150s or 250s. They probably were 150s.
You stopped for lunch at one point. What did you get?
Well, so there's nothing really, there's no, when you go to a restaurant, sometimes it's best to go to the busiest one because that's where the locals are eating and so it's probably okay. And we can't really read the menus. So we go to this one where there's some vehicles parked outside and we go in and we sit down and the locals talking to us a bit because, we're clearly not from there and we're not on scooters. We're on, dirt bikes or dual sports. And so this guy who conveyed to us that he was a doctor, gave us some help. And so we ended up ordering what was sold to us as a beef hot pot. Sounds okay, right? There's a lot of weird food in Vietnam, or at least there was at this time. And, I don't really want to eat the parts that we might throw away here. Let's put it like that. I know there's a better term for it.
Right. So with a beef hot pot, you picture like, I don't know, roast beef or something.
Yeah. Right. Like a chunk off of a roast, but no. So we eat it, we get a couple bites into this thing and this is not tasting like any beef that I've had in my life, texture, any of that. So we kind of asked them, well, what part of the cow is this? And then they can tell us, oh, it's the lung. So I'm eating a beef lung, a cow lung hot pot here.
Yum.
Yeah. So, I mean, the broth was fine, but immediately my friend there just says, okay, I'm just going to eat the vegetables. And I think I'd probably had a couple pieces of the beef already at that point. Anyway, so we eat a bit more of that, and then we say our goodbyes and set off on the rest of our journey. And this is just where it hits me, is we're riding along past one of these rice paddies, having a good time. But almost instantaneously, I felt sick and I got sick. There was no time to, pull over, slow down the bike, anything. It's just like someone flipped a switch, and I end up throwing up in this helmet, which God. I don't think a lot of people have experienced. It's pretty awful.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. That's I haven't done that one, and I hope never to do that. Our feet are delicate parts of our body. I mean, if you question that, just stub your toe or if you have a cut or something or an infection on your foot and see how you walk. But it's not just about maneuverability or balance. Our feet have a sort of a solid connection to our brains, meaning that when your feet are happy, you feel good. And that's why you should be wearing the official sock of Adventure Rider Radio, Pearly's Possum Socks. Every time I sit down to do an ad for Pearly's, I want to go through everything because I'm just in love with these socks. I want to tell you all the things that make Pearly's Possum Socks the best cold weather socks that I've ever worn, but there isn't enough time. There's not enough time for me to tell you about the natural fibers that they come from animals that live in a cold, wet climate, and it's those fibers that keep the animal alive and warm and able to tolerate the climate they live in, or about the knit, the fact that Pearly's socks are knitted the way they are because the owners of Pearly's are avid adventure riders just like us. They know what it's like to ride with boots on. They know what us riders want and need. Or the natural lanolin that's in the socks and how those lanolins prevent the socks from stinking even when you've worn them too long, jammed in your boots. Or how thick and soft these socks are, or how they wick the moisture away from their skin so your feet always feel refreshed. Even after a long day, you take them off, your feet feel good. There's just so many great things about Pearly's Possum Socks. So the best thing I think you can do is order a pair for yourself and find out why so many other Adventure Rider Radio listeners are wearing and bragging about their Pearly's Possum Socks. They are the best cold weather sock I've ever worn, and that comes from years of outdoors, much of that working as a wilderness guide. This is money well spent on your feet, making each ride an enjoyable one. Oh, and a tip from my personal experience, you can wear Pearly's Possum Socks in the summertime too. In my riding boots, I've got my tall Pearly's Possum Socks. There's nothing better. Pearly'sPossumSocks.com is the website. Anytime you're dealing with them, throw in there that you heard them here on Adventure Rider Radio. Pearly'sPossumSocks.com. Brand new from Double Take Mirror, same great mirrors, but an all-new mounting system. They've completely redesigned their dual pivot mirror system using 14 years of experience, 14 years of feedback from customers. They're still guaranteed for life, and they say it's the last mirror you'll ever buy. Now, I've run these mirrors for years, Double Take. The old ones were great. The new ones are even better, which surprised me because I already thought they had it dialed. The new design has a no-crush ball mount and a brand new arm design, which is easier to adjust and just a more robust arm than what it was before. Double Take Mirror is the brainchild of Ned Seuss, and really, it was born out of his own frustration and necessity. In a single crash, Ned managed to break both of the OE mirrors off of his bike and break his master cylinder at the same time, leaving him stranded. So I think that every adventure rider would benefit from Double Take mirrors because they replace your stock mirror with an unbreakable and infinitely adjustable mirror that's easy to fold down when you're off-road or adjust while you're on the fly. And what I do with them, I just leave them just snugged so that if a tree clips them or if I drop the bike or something, the mirror gets hit and it just folds away. It's really ingenious. It works extremely well. My double take mirrors have been through some tremendous abuse over the years, and I've never broke one. But the thing is, double take guarantees them for life. So even if I do break one, they're going to replace it free of charge. I mean, you can't beat that. Don't be the rider with the stock mirrors that breaks off the master cylinder because the bike fell over. Use double take mirror. Besides, the optics are better on my double take mirrors than any of my stock ones were anyway. And they've got new designs and styles to match your look of your bike. DoubleTakeMirror.com is a website. Anytime you're dealing with them, throw in there that you heard them here on Adventure Rider Radio. DoubleTakeMirror.com. You threw up in your own helmet. Like, so you got no warning at all.
Well, to be fair, it's not my helmet. It was my friend's. He brought it from home. And he got married a year and a half ago. And he rode the bike as part of the wedding. And he was wearing that helmet. And I just laughed at him. I said, "You remember that helmet?" "Hey, I do." Yeah. So I pull this thing on. I get the bike pulled over. And I pull this helmet off. And the sick is, coming out of it down the front of me. And it's not a pretty sight, Jim, let me tell you.
Was the food bad, or is it just you reacting to something you didn't like?
I would imagine it's, just some Western guy coming to a Southeast Asian country eating something that he's never had before, and it just not agreeing. I don't think it was that the food was bad by food safe standards. I mean, it probably was by food safe standards. They have the meat sitting out on the side of the road to be sold in those places with flies on it and the rest of that. And it was just that was just adjusting to the new, the culture. Let's put it.
Were you thinking about it as you ride away? Thinking about, oh, that was so disgusting. I just ate some lung and.
No, I've already moved on. I'm ready to continue on this journey. Yeah, no, this came out of nowhere.
So what do you do?
Well, I mean, you try to clean yourself up. So we lean into the ditch of this rice paddy and start trying to splash some water on, to which my friend then tells me afterwards, like the locals, when they have to go to the bathroom, they basically do it in the rice paddy. So you're probably washing up in that too. And I don't have a lot of options right here. So clean myself up a bit, the best I can. And then we continue on. And the local ladies in these rice paddies are just kind of looking at us like, what are these guys doing? Anyway, so that happened, cleaned up, got back on. And another 10, 15 minutes later, I got sick again. And I mean, it wasn't as bad, but it was still in the helmet. And
oh, man.
Yeah, so I'm not feeling so good at this point. This trip's starting to go a little sideways, but that's okay. We continue on, and amazing back roads. I'm loving it. I'm starting to feel a little bit bad though, and so we continue on and just are trying to find somewhere to stay that night, because clearly I'm going downhill. Mm-hmm. And I think at some point we're coming into a town or a village of some kind, and we agreed I would just sort of wait there on the side of the road for my friend to find somewhere for us. And so he comes back. He's found us a place to stay that night, and we go in and stay. And the mattresses on this wooden plank were like maybe an inch thick, so. I lie on this mattress all night and just am, man sick. Feel like I'm dying on this thing, and we just kind of sheltered there. And he did what he could to take care of me. And by the morning, I wasn't 100%, but we were good enough to keep going, and so we did. And we made it to Sapa and explored a bit and had some more memories made there, and then made our way back.
And at this point, how are you feeling about the trip?
I mean, I'm still feeling good about the trip. This is when I caught the bug for the motorcycling here. It's like nothing else I've done before. I grew up mountain biking, but to have the engine under you and cover so much more ground, and it was just a blast. So, for the rest of the time I was in Southeast Asia, every chance I got, we were renting motorcycles, which actually were scooters at that point. Didn't find a lot of more 150s like that to rent, but yeah, memories forever. I totaled one rental company's like 150 CBR, which was a bit of a nightmare.
How? What happened?
Well, this one I was up in Thailand doing the Mae Hong Song loop. And so I met a guy and we were doing that together. And then he turned back about halfway because he had something else to do.
You've already left your other friend at this point.
Yeah, this is like months later.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm continuing on, and I just went a little bit, you come into a corner a little too hot, and I'm in shorts and a t-shirt, as you do. And there's no gear when you're backpacking. And I just caught the gravel, and I laid the bike down, I want to say low side, and there's nobody around, and this thing just gets pretty wrecked. And thankfully, some truck came around, and these guys loaded me into the back of this pickup truck with this bike, and we bandaged my arm with my t-shirt, and found some another town where they dropped me off at a hospital, and they dropped the bike off at a rental shop, and they cleaned me up, and then I had to go find the rental shop that this bike was at, which was, you don't speak the language, but I did. I found it, and nobody could fix this thing because it's the Lunar New Year and nobody's working. And I couldn't transport it back. That was a big disaster too. So anyway, to make a long story short here, I figure out how to get myself and this broken bike back to Chiang Mai, and the guy at the rental shop is not happy with me. He's holding my passport hostage. And comes up with $1,000 I need to give him as what the number is to get my passport back. So I go and I find another rival bike shop, which was run by a British guy. And so I talk to him, tell him what happened, and his advice to me was like, it's probably going to cost the bike owner more to fix it, so just give him the $1,000 and get your passport and get out of here, because I had a plane to catch to go somewhere else. So I think on that Southeast Asia trip, though, I must have done 5 or 6 different little trips here, and all just incredible stuff.
This is quite a start. I mean, you start off with being sort of flung onto the motorcycle and learning how to ride in the midst of all the traffic. Then you puke in your helmet, which is going to be the worst thing ever. not to mention riding with that same helmet afterwards. But that's another story. Then you crash a bike, cost you $1,000 out of your budget, which has to hurt. But I honestly think that's pretty darn cheap for a motorcycle, for basically destroying it. But then you come out with a love of motorcycles.
Yeah. So, I mean, after this big trip, which, I got to tell you, and when I got to Western Europe, I ended up doing the Amalfi Coast on a little Vespa thing as well. And that was amazing. It's just as good as doing it on a nice bike because you're stuck behind other traffic.
Right.
So that was awesome. And I come home and I've decided while I was on this trip that, okay, I'm going to get into real estate here. And so I start taking all the steps to do that. But while I'm doing that, I call up my friend there in Calgary. And so we reunite over Halloween. And he lends me his Yamaha 250 XT that I can just kind of have for a while. Because, I don't know, he doesn't need it. He turned me on to this. So I ride that thing from Calgary to Vancouver on November 1st, which, thankfully he had a heated vest he gave me, but it took me 3 days in the rain, and man, that was cold. And you can't get that bike going very fast. Like, you're not taking the major highways. Yeah. And meanwhile, on the whole trip, I'm talking to him on the phone to try to, he's telling me where the snow is and which passes to go on and not go on because there's snow there.
November, for those who don't know, you're going through the mountains from between Calgary. I mean, that's all you've got is mountains to go through from Calgary to Vancouver. It's all mountains, and it's a time of year where you're getting snow, and you're definitely getting cold, and you're definitely getting rain if it isn't snowing.
Yeah, it's the Rocky Mountains for sure. So I get it done. I get back home after 3 days, and now I've got this bike and some gear, and that was the start of it. I took that thing everywhere I could think of it, some places I shouldn't have. And within within a year, I had started to make some sales in this business and found myself with a big fat check. And what did I do? I paid off this car that I had financed because I didn't have anything when I came back, and there was a bit of money left over. So I put $8,000 down on a brand new F800 GS, and that's the bike I ride today.
Oh, nice. And that was sort of your dream bike, you said?
Well, when you get into a sales job like I have, it's all a lot of motivational speakers and that. And somebody told me, take a picture of something you want and that you're going to reward yourself with, and print it out, laminate it, put it on your keychain. So you're going to see all this. So I actually did that. I went to the dealership, had someone take a picture of me on this bike, and then I had that thing on a keychain with me for the better part of 8 months. And then I got it. Yeah, it was that. And, a lot of people ask what kind of bike they should start on. But, I had ridden the 250, and I didn't really see the point of stepping up gradually. You're just going to lose money buying and reselling these bikes. So I jumped right into the 800, and I've taken that thing so many different places, and it's every year I think, maybe I should get a new bike or a different bike, but I always come back to, this thing does everything I need it to, and I can, and it's such an incredible machine.
Yeah, and you know the bike at this point.
I know the bike. I've almost written it off twice.
Do you mean like you've crashed it?
Yeah. I had a pretty big crash on the I-5 coming back from San Diego early in my riding career, where there was, we got time to tell you this little side note?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I've ridden down the Pacific Coast Highway by myself, and I've ended up in San Diego, where I've gotten sick somehow with I don't know what. And I've spent a couple of nights in this hostel, and I'm not getting better. My dad happens to be living in Salem, Oregon. So I decide, okay, I got to get out of here. I'm going to go to my dad's. And so you get up. I had just gone through the LA traffic, which was horrific. Didn't want to do that again. So I got up at like 4:30 in the morning, sick, got on the bike and started heading down the highway to make it back. But I come around this, I'm trying to get gas. I'm at the next exit, and I come around this corner, this blind corner, and there's no shoulder, but there is a truck just parked, like a pickup truck, parked dead, lights off, in the middle of the right lane, and in the dark, so you can't see it. And the car in front of me makes a big swerve left. I'm like, what's going on here? And out of nowhere materializes this truck that I'm about to hit going 100 kilometers an hour. And so I lean left. I managed to mostly dodge it. It shears off my pannier, and all that stuff goes flying. I pull over a little down the road, and the people who ran over my box pull over and ask me if I'm okay. And I try to grab a few things that have gone flying. I asked this lady, what are you doing? And her car had died, battery died, so that didn't have the lights on. And, I don't have time or capacity to have a big conversation with her. So I get out what I could, go back to the bike. And actually, about a couple minutes later, the same lady got smoked by a semi who had the same problem I did, right? She's in the middle of the road. And she ended up with some head trauma and was okay in the long run. But yeah, that was a scary one. And, as the police are taking my statement and the rest of it, he kind of says to me, cool trip, man. I'm like, okay, thanks. Yeah. Can I keep going? Because this is, I got a long way to go here. And I proceeded to do 1,200 kilometers that day. And the frame was a little bent on the bike when I got it home. And so they fixed that. And then I had another sort of thing on a logging road once, which, man, if you hit another vehicle improperly and you bend the frame, it's not long before the insurance company is going to go, it costs us more to fix it than replace it.
It usually doesn't take much at all, but certainly a bent frame is generally when they'll just say, forget it.
Well, I found it was the dealers because they were trying to replace every little thing on it. Like the tank had a scratch on it and they wanted to replace that. And I went, no, I don't care if it has a scratch on it. I want the bike back. I don't want to check.
So that was really, really lucky though, with you hitting that vehicle. I mean, just missing. I mean, that was almost a head on.
Yeah, I could have lost a leg for sure.
Oh man, that's horrible. And had you been back farther from the car, would you have had a better chance of seeing it?
Maybe. Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I've never taken any courses or classes, so I got my motorcycle. But you remember, I got the license, yeah. But remember, I've got that Vietnamese pedigree of riding style.
Well, you're supposed to be worrying about what's in front of you.
Yeah,
with that stuff. But the thing is, though, to be fair, their driving style is at much lower speeds than what you get here in North America.
Yeah, they're not going 100 kilometers an hour. You got that right.
RoadDogPub.com is your gateway to incredible stories about motorcycles, incredible books about motorcycles. Road Dog Pub was founded and is still owned and operated by avid rider, author, and writer Mike Fitterling, who actually has some books of his own in the lineup, like Northeast by Northwest and Thoughts on the Road. But Road Dog Pub specializes in great motorcycle books. So if you want to read about motorcycles, especially stories about travel and adventure, man, they have a slew of them. Like Rubber Side Down by Ron Davis, Two-Wheeled Wind Therapy by Kathleen Turner, Shiny Side Up also by Ron Davis, Hit the Road Jack by Jackie Furno, Man in the Saddle, Paul Van Hoof, In Search of Greener Grass by Graham Field, Asphalt and Dirt by Aaron Heinrich, and many more. Many of these we've had actually on the show. Great stories. RoadDogPub.com is the website. Now you can buy Road Dog Pub books at any fine bookstore, but why not order directly from the publisher? RoadDogPub.com. And anytime you're dealing with them, throw in that you heard them here on Adventure Rider Radio. RoadDogPub.com. Most of us understand the advantages of standing on our foot pegs to control the bike, especially in difficult terrain. Standing gets even better when you have the proper connection between your foot and your motorcycle. That connection, of course, is your foot peg. Stock foot pegs are to rest your feet on while you go down the road. Stock foot pegs are to get the bike out of the showroom. IMS Products makes replacement foot pegs so that you can get far more from your motorcycle. Better control through leverage, better peg weighting, better connection with IMS staggered tooth design, better cleaning with the IMS watershed design. And then the added bonus is that the IMS peg will make a more comfortable ride, more comfortable perch for your feet as you ride down the road in those long stretches. IMS has a full line of adventure motorcycle foot pegs with different designs to suit any style of riding. They are made of CAS certified 17.4 stainless steel. They use a certified heat treating process. They're made in the USA, and get this, they're warranted for life. IMSproducts.com is the website. Anytime you're dealing with them, throw in there that you heard them here on Adventure Rider Radio. IMSproducts.com. When did you get your license anyway? When you came back from the trip?
Pretty much as soon as I got back, yeah.
Oh, yeah. With the 250?
With the 250, yeah.
You're traveling, though. Have you went and traveled more with motorcycles?
Oh, yeah. So, I've done a massive trip around the States with the bike hitting over like 19 days, but like the Grand Canyon, Moab, all these different national parks. That was something. These are more like big stay on the road trips. I have done several of the BDRs with some friends, and there's so many little kind of 3-4 day week-long camping off-road trips you can do here in British Columbia, because we're along the Rocky Mountains and the coast. So just endless things like that. I took my wife on the back right again down the Pacific coast this year, and we went to Tijuana and back, which was
nice.
Not everybody's got a wife who's going to sit on the back for 2 weeks like that. It was pretty incredible.
You started out, I want to go back to that trip. By the way, with the trip, where else did you go on the trip? Did you actually go around the world?
Well, yeah. So we did the Sapa thing, and I almost died a couple times with some crazy buses passing and all that. It's quite chaotic. But after that, I went from Vietnam to Cambodia and rented a scooter there and did a couple of days here and there with that. Then we went into Laos, and there's 2 different loops you can do there, which I did. Went to Myanmar, and we managed to find bikes to rent there, and did a little putting around, which was great. It's no better way to see a place than that. It's why spend your time in a museum when you can really just feel the landscape and you just get a totally different, a good feel for a place when you're passing through it like that.
On a bike.
Yeah, absolutely. Where else do we do? Then Thailand, I had a couple of loops down to Mae Hong Son one I mentioned, and in Chiang Rai. In Indonesia, I went to Bali and rented a scooter for the 2 weeks I was there, and went different parts of that island. In Europe, I think the only thing I got away with was a little motocross in Scotland with some family, and as well as that trip down the Amalfi Coast, and then it was home. Yeah, this was 8 months on the road.
And did you get to South America?
No, that's something I have yet to do, but my wife is Venezuelan Chinese, so I hope to go do Colombia and these kind of things because she speaks fluent Spanish.
Oh, wow. Oh, now I see why you're grooming her to go on the back of your bike.
She's got a good adventurous spirit. Yeah.
Oh, is that right? So what you said was, you were starting out, like when you went and did your travel, when you started to do that in 2014, when you were the salesman and you got the boot, and it sort of sent you off. You said you're sort of trying to figure out what your life was about, or what life was about. Can you talk about that a bit and how it turned out?
Sure. Well, I mean, I always picture myself to be more introverted, and you have no choice in that kind of situation though. When you're on your own, you got to talk to somebody, and that just really allowed me to flourish and see how that I'm actually good with people, and then I made some lifelong friends. Even if I don't see them because they're all over the world, but I'm sure I could just drop in on them if I wanted to. And I realized, yeah, this is something I can do. I like people. I like helping people. And so I came back here and just decided that the best that you could shift that into being a real estate agent, because now you don't have to go back to university. It's not that long to get the license. It's people-oriented business. There's nobody that's gonna sort of do what this lady who owned the beer company did to me, right? You eat what you kill, you control your schedule, you're in control of your destiny somewhat. So yeah, it just really allowed me to be comfortable with going into the unknown.
And with that, you came out with this passion for motorcycles, which you can hear in everything you're saying. I mean, even as you're describing visiting these places and saying there's no better way to experience it than on a motorcycle.
Absolutely. My friend who took me on that trip to Vietnam, he says this is the most expensive way to travel like a hobo. And I went, yeah, that seems to be true, but it's quite something. You meet people, you have unforgettable experiences. You really get a feel for the place. And yeah, sorry, I'm just getting lost even just thinking about it. What I love about what I do now, though, is, I can do some of my work from the road. Like I remember I did the real estate deal from like a McDonald's on an iPad in Salt Lake City, Utah. Somebody was back home, and I just facilitating it all from the McDonald's. And you can just do that.
As you're riding,
not on the bike. Yeah, I pulled over into the McDonald's. The people I was with kept going. I met up with them in a bit. And you can do that. You can just take a week or two off if you've got it organized properly, and go do one of these trips, like go to a BDR, because you need that. I think that's why most, I was joking with you a little bit about the demographic for adventure riders earlier, and that's the people who are able to do that are the ones they're retired mostly. I mean, not everybody, but a lot of them retired, paid off houses. These are not places where I'm at right now at 36.
I sometimes wonder if it's those things. I mean, I think that's the obvious ones, to have the money and be at a point where you're not required to work. But I wonder if it's also at a point where people get to in life where you're thinking, okay, is this it? You know what I mean? And it sounds like you were at that point very young. And you sort of look at it and think, well, what is this about? What do I want to do? And I can't help but wonder if that isn't what some of us get to as we get older. You know, you get to that point where you had your family and now you're thinking, well, now what?
I think that's really, really true. Yeah. For me, you know, after this 8 months trip, I stood at a crossroads as I came home going, do I make enough money to go to Australia and continue this thing and do one of those 2-year visas and just keep going, get into South America? Like that was my plan at one point, but I was 27 and I had this moment of, no, it's time to be, you know, an adult and start thinking about building some wealth and a future and a career here. So yeah, I think it depends sometimes where you're located in the world. Like, and where I am, it's very expensive, and if you want to stay here, you gotta work and figure out a way to do that. It's not. I don't want to say it's easier in other places, but it's a different calculation. And it depends what's important to you. You know, I come from a family where my dad was a doctor, and I'm like, I was always hoping and dreaming to find a way back to where I grew up in North Van, which I recently have, which has been a huge, very rewarding. And just to think back on talking to you about this 9 years ago, I set off with next to nothing. And here I am having achieved a lot of those goals and built in enough freedom to go on these bike adventures, and amazingly, a wife who's going to sit on the back for a bunch of them. Like I rented a GS 1200 in Mexico, and we did 6 days, 2,600 kilometers around Mexico on this thing.
Yeah, that's really neat. And like everybody's life is different, of course. And, you know, you're saying you want to create some wealth, you want to create some security for yourself, which makes a lot of sense at your age. It'd be very easy to sort of just say, well, I'm going to go on a permanent vacation and just ride around and sort of get by on a shoestring. But you haven't really given it up. By the sounds of it, you're doing all these little trips. So you're kind of melding the best of both and getting the most out of it.
I'm trying to be careful, right? I mean, I see this amongst my colleagues a lot, as people get so sucked in by the amount of money you can make. And then it becomes their whole world and their whole personality. And they can't talk to you about anything but the last real estate listing and transaction that they've done. And right. I don't want to ever get sucked into that. I want to be, you know, working to go on these kind of trips and help some people. And it's not about, I don't need to have a Maserati. Like I've got a pretty humble Mazda CX-5, and the BMW is my fancy shiny item, the motorcycle.
It's about balance.
I think so. Yeah.
Out of all those places that you rode in, is there one that stands out to you that you definitely want to go back to?
I like how cheap Vietnam was. I had a lot of fun there. Going back to the Amalfi Coast would be something. That's a beautiful place. You go through with all the orchard, the lemon trees, and the rest of that. But for me, I think I want to get on and go to do things in South America. I've got some extended family now through my wife in Colombia, so I'd love to go and do an exploration there. And there's just too many new places to go. Mm-hmm.
What's on your keychain now?
No, I don't have any fancy things on my keychain here that I'm aspiring to go to. You know, we just got this lovely townhome in North Van that I need to put some renovations into at some point. I got a little Lego man on there that my 5-year-old niece gave me a couple months ago, she's a light to have in our lives. And I'm pretty content right now with where I'm at. So it's just, can I keep this going? Can I, manage to go on a handful of trips a year? I'd love to go on some more international trips and maybe do some bike courses, but just the way the life and schedule of what I do works, something that makes that a bit harder. I don't have any, I'm great where I'm at. I'm content. Maybe I'd like to get a couple of different motorcycles here, but now that I got a garage to put them in, I don't know. Yeah, it's, I just want to be retired like all these guys I ride with. They tell me I'm too young for it though. Tell me I got to work for a while still.
How old are you now?
36, but a lot of the guys I ride with are in their early 60s, mid 50s.
Mm-hmm. Josh, thanks so much for sharing your story.
Thank you for having me, Jim. What a privilege, like I was telling you. Thanks for making the time.
Thank you. I was speaking with Josh Kepkay from his home in Vancouver, Canada. Actually, if you're looking for a real estate agent and you're looking in Vancouver, Canada, why not deal with a rider? Oh, we're going to have to bill Josh for that one. Josh Kepkay. We got a bunch of great photos from Josh's adventure in the show notes for this episode on our website at adventureriderradio.com. Yeah, I just want to remind you that this episode has been brought to you by Green Chili Adventure Gear, greenchiliadv.com, Motobreeze Chain Oiler at motobreeze.com, and Best Rest Products at cyclepump.com. And we'd really appreciate it if anytime you're dealing with these companies, anytime email or otherwise, let them know you heard them here on Adventure Rider Radio. That about wraps up another episode of Adventure Rider Radio, and we sure hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as we did making it. Special thanks to our producer, Elizabeth Martin, and of course you. Thank you very much for listening and being a part of the show that way. Hey, if you like what you're hearing, we do here every week and what we do every month on our other show called Raw. That comes out the 21st of every month. So every month you go to you can go to our website and find it at the website or wherever you're finding your podcasts. But if you like what we're doing here, we would really appreciate it if you could give us a 5-star review wherever you're finding your shows, wherever you're listening to it, because that helps other people find the show. And you could go one step further and you could share it maybe on social media or with your friends or whatever, again, to help other people find the show. Or you could go one step further, which to me would be really, really appreciated. That would be consider supporting the show. Drop by our website, adventureriderradio.com, click on support. There's a bunch of different ways you can do it, but one of the best ways you can do it is join our Patreon account. You can get some ad-free listening. For instance, if you don't want to hear the ads, there's an ad-free version for through our Patreon account. You just sign up there. I forget how much it is that you sign up for, but you can get the ad-free version at a certain tier. And you would be there for us each episode, each month, and we would really appreciate it because this show is built on a model of advertising and listener support. Well, now it's time to get out there and ride your bike if you can. My name is Jim Martin. Thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you next week.
Hi, we are Lavi and Ollie.
And you're listening to Adventure Rider Radio.